right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 11th inning stretch, and this is the Cardinals Weekly Podcast. Today is Saturday, September 3rd, and this will be released on September 4th. First things first, we'll go into a weekly recap of the week, and then Alex will lead a discussion later on in the show about the Cardinals. Last weekend, Oakland took 2 or 3 from the Cardinals. That was at Busch Stadium. I'm not entirely surprised. I don't think anybody is entirely surprised by the result. The Cardinals should have won, but given the Cardinals' home struggles this season, when you look back on it, it's not all that surprising.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I completely agree.
And then the Cardinals went to Milwaukee, and the thought was that, okay, they need to at least take 2 or 3 because Milwaukee's terrible and the Cardinals are good on the road. And the teams that are chasing the Cardinals in the wild card haven't been winning all that much. The Mets and the Marlins played each other. The Pirates have been sort of on a mini skid as of late. And the Giants in the second half of the season have been pretty terrible. So it's been a chance the past week or so, and continuing on into next week, for the Cardinals to go ahead and make some room in between them and the teams that are behind them.
Yeah, I agree. I really don't think that the Cardinals right now are wanting to move past the Giants just for the fact that they're playing bad at home, and they know that. So they don't want to pass the number 1 guy in the wild card series. They'd much rather wait to have it at their place and beat them in 7 rather than going to theirs and losing in 4.
That's a good point. And I had a buddy ask me last night as I was watching the Cardinals game. He goes, "Would you rather face the Giants in San Francisco or the Dodgers in Los Angeles?" Alex, I said the Giants in San Francisco just because of their struggles in the second half of the season. And Los Angeles has been so hurt all of this season, and they're still on pace to win the division. So once they get healthy, I think they'll be really, really good. But it's sort of a pick your poison. You know, do you want to face the team that has the record of winning in the postseason? Or do you want to face the team that, you've had their number in the Dodgers the past couple of years in the playoffs, but they're certainly the hotter team. Alex, what would you respond to that question?
I would say the Dodgers, just because I know what Madison Bumgarner can do in the playoffs because he showed it, and Clayton Kershaw is awful in the playoffs. So I would much rather face a Dodgers team that's not really made up of too many superstars. They're just right now, basically, they're playing the same rate that the Giants are because they got out to a lead, and then so far they really haven't gained a whole lot of ground on that lead. They've just been keeping pace with the Giants is all it is. When they were healthy and they had a lot of players, they were playing really good baseball, and now they beat, I think, 2 games from the Rockies the other day in Colorado. Shocker.
Right.
Nonetheless, I would rather face the Dodgers.
So you would rather take Clayton Kershaw? I understand his postseason record, and sort of, the Cardinals have made him look very human in a number of playoff games. But gosh, I just feel like that's going to come back around at some point. The law of averages is going to work out, and Clayton Kershaw is going to have a game where he's going to go 8 innings scoreless, and you're not going to win. I don't know when that will happen. I don't even know if that will happen. But I don't know. I would just rather face Bumgarner. I'm not saying that with any convincing tone in my voice. But that's just me. So coming up this week, the Cardinals will be going to Pittsburgh in a pretty big 3-game set. And then they are I believe, at home against the Brewers. So by the time we will talk again next week, the Cardinals will be back home, hopefully winning some ball games. But at this point in the season, I'm not so sure they will.
Yeah, I agree.
Alex, you have approached me before the show, and you want to lead a discussion about the Cardinals and what they should do, towards the end of this season and into the off season. So I will let you take the reins.
Yeah, we really, honestly, at this time of the season, there's not too much new things going on with one single team. So we're, to be honest, we've kind of been reaching at straws here lately, trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. And I was watching my second favorite team in the major leagues that I've liked forever, the Red Sox, and they were talking about what they're going to do after David Ortiz leaves, and they were talking, they could sign Edwin or Hanley Ramirez could be the DH. So it kind of got me thinking. I kind of want to lead a discussion basically on, by position, should the Cardinals go after in the offseason, signing him as a free agent via trade, whatever they have to do. So I'm going to ask Paul and get Paul's opinion, and then I'll kind of just give mine short and sweet, excuse me, after him. So kick it right off. We'll go with the number one spot, the starting pitcher. What do you think on that one?
They do need to get a starting pitcher. Now, Lance Lynn is coming back next season. Let's not forget that. But, Adam Wainwright hasn't looked good this year. Jaime Garcia hasn't looked good this year. Michael Wacha may not even be pitching. God knows what his injuries are going to do. Alex Reyes should be in the rotation. Mike Leake should be in the rotation. I think they need one more proven starter. Don't go out and get a rookie or anything. They need one more proven starter to put in the middle or back end of that rotation.
Okay, I agree with you. I don't know if they will, because I think it's almost like an addition of Lance Lynn.
Right.
I think might serve enough for what they need. He's proven, he's going to pitch 7-8 innings every night. He may not make it the prettiest game, but he's going to give you innings. He's going to keep your team in the ball game. So I think that might work. But if they're not comfortable with that, I could see them making a move for a starting pitcher.
And you can always have more pitchers because there's going to be injuries. Guys aren't going to perform the way everyone's expecting. You can always use more pitchers.
Okay, moving on. What about catcher?
Catcher, I think they should stick with Molina, obviously. But I've been saying this for a while now. I've been saying it for the past couple seasons. They need to find Molina's replacement pretty soon and sort of, have him, in the works and have that slow transition start to take place between Molina and our next, cornerstone catcher. But I think it'll obviously be Molina next season.
Okay. Would you want them to find that replacement in the draft, trade?
I don't really care as long as he's young, because I don't want to get an old catcher and then have to go through the same process a couple more seasons down the road. I think if you can find a catcher, preferably through the draft, and I know college catchers aren't, necessarily the most easy to come by, but they need to get a young catcher. I'm not sure what that includes or who that is, but a young catcher would be a lot more useful than a established veteran, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I've been talking with people about that for at least 2 years now. It's time to find that replacement. Granted, no one's going to be as good as Yadier Molina. I know Salvador Perez and now Gary Sanchez of the Yankees are making it very hard for me to say that still. Gary Sanchez's offense is great, and his defense is really good as well. And Salvador Perez, World Series MVP.
He's an all-star catcher too.
Yeah. Gold Glove. So yeah, they're making it very hard for me to say that. I think that those are going to be the two big all stars at catcher. But yeah, the Cardinals do need to find one. Um, okay. Also, now we're moving on to first base. With the news of Matt Adams coming off the DL, um, I think for last night's game, I believe. Um, do you think that they should find a first baseman, or do you like the Moss at first base thing?
I don't know. I think, just for sake of answering, I'm going to go with Brandon Moss at first base. Either way, whether you have Moss in first base or left field or right field, I think you need to bring him back. We've had this discussion before. I don't see Matt Adams as the permanent option at first base. Matt Carpenter could be the option at first base. I don't think it'll be Adams. Even Piscotty and Holiday can play first base. So I think next season it's going to be more of a platoon. But if you want a consistent option, I think it's going to be Brandon Moss.
I'll agree with you to an extent that I think Brandon Moss is probably going to play more of the outfield. And I don't think that Matt Adams is the permanent player right now. But I think can move into that spot as the permanent player. Same thing kind of goes with second base, and we'll talk about that here next. But I think that if they found a backup first baseman, or if they went out and signed a superstar first baseman, if they could do that, I think that would be a good option for them to do. So far, both of us have said a starting pitcher is needed. A replacement for Yadier Molina at catcher is to be drafted or signed somehow, but young. And for first base is where we both kind of differed. And you're saying Brandon Moss at first base, and I'm basically saying it's time to sign somebody to play first base, because I think Brandon Moss is going to play left field.
You know, you can't talk about Brandon Moss without talking about Matt Holliday. And I don't want to jump around too much here, but what do you do with Matt Holliday? I know we've talked about this, but what is your final stance, final position on Matt Holliday?
I think that they bring him back. I think it's going to be kind of his playing time is going to be cut down drastically, and Brandon Moss is going to get the majority of the starts in the outfield. Just like with Yadier Molina, it's time to phase out that roster of players, and it's time to bring in that new, young, youthful superstar players. Not saying Brandon Moss is youthful, but he's definitely more agile than Matt Holliday. So
now, do they bring back Holliday? You think? Because I agree. I think they'll bring back Holliday. Personally, I don't think they should, but I think they will. But I think they'll do it under a restructured contract, because owing him, what is it, $17 million or whatever it is a little much for a glorified bench piece, I think.
Yeah, I think the more reason they're bringing him back is just because he said vocally, I want to end my career in St. Louis, and so they're wanting to make that happen. So that's why I think a big reason they'll bring him back. And on top of that, I like Matt Holliday a lot. So,
sure, yeah.
As a person, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what they. There's always that one big story that happens in the offseason for the Cardinals, and that might be it.
Right.
This next position could be a huge one to talk about as well, and that is second base. The Cardinals signed Jerko basically as a bench piece, and he has obviously performed way above that this season.
He's performed like an all-star.
Yeah. Colton Wong has shown flashes that he can do the job. It's almost, again, a lot of these players, have the potential to play other positions. And that's kind of what I think about with Jed Jerko. I'm going to take your take on it, and then I'll explain what I'm talking about. But who do you think is going to be playing the majority of second base next year?
I think it should be Jed Jerko. I mean, the Cardinals have him through 2020 or 2021, something like that. Once he got out of that ballpark in San Diego, he's shown that he can really hit the ball. And his defense has been pretty average, which is fine. I mean, you would like a better defensive second baseman. But with the way Jerko's hitting, I don't really care about his defense. Um, I think it's got to be Jed Jerko, and I apologize to Colton Wong, but I mean, there is no reason, in my opinion, why Jed Jerko should not be your starting second baseman.
Here's the thing: I view there's different positions on the baseball field that mean different things, and like you said, his defense is average. I think for second baseman, defense can be average, but second baseman usually hit better. Better than shortstops. I mean, just look around the league for the most part, and you'll.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got Brian Dozier, Robinson Cano,
Jason
gosh, I
Kipnis,
don't know. I mean, Jason Kipnis,
Jose Altuve.
Jose Altuve. Gosh, I can't forget about him. D.
No,
Gordon's a good one.
yeah, and there are some exceptions, obviously, to that. I mean, Carlos Correa and Jose Altuve, you can kind of think of them as, oh, well, he's good too. Well, he's good. But Carlos Correa definitely does not hit as well as Jose Altuve does. And I'm not just talking about, with Jed Jerko, obviously, it's his power. And not every second baseman has a whole lot of power. Dustin Pedroia is not showing a lot of power, but he's batting 324, I think, and Xander Bogaerts was batting 340 and is now down to 304 as of last time I saw. Here's the thing this is what I was kind of talking about. I think that the Johnny Peralta days are very much numbered.
Yep.
I love Johnny Peralta. I've made it verbally clear that I don't like players to take PEDs, knowing that he has done that. He hasn't tested positive since then, since he's been on the Cardinals, and whatever. Don't want to get into that. But I like Johnny Peralta. I did last year when he played shortstop for us and did a very, very good job. That Colton Wong, in order to start second base, has to make some serious gains this offseason. He's got to have a very, very, very big offseason in order to man that second base spot, and I think that he can do it, and I'd love to see him there. And if Johnny Peralta's days are numbered at third, I think Jed Jerko has the body type and the reaction to play third base for the St. Louis Cardinals, and it could do it very well.
Yeah, and that's the good thing. And this is the good problem that the Cardinals have, is that they have multiple guys that can play more than one position. Speaking of, namely Matt Carpenter and Jed Jerko and Johnny Peralta.
Yeah, and I mean, and basically the way this is going to go is if all the positions we're talking about, if one player gets signed to play one position or one player is set to play another one, then another player is going to have to be moved, and that's a great problem to have. For instance, if the Cardinals do sign a first baseman and Matt Carpenter is your first baseman going into it, well, Matt Carpenter has to be in your lineup, which means Colton Wong would be out at second base, and Matt Carpenter would play there, or Matt Carpenter would play third, and Jerko's at second. It's a good problem to have, but it's bad for the players that want to play. Colton Wong desperately wants to play baseball, and right now, Jed Jerko is just killing it. Right now, Colton Wong can't catch a break.
And this is sort of the thing, is that it's almost like it's a Jed Jerko, it's not like Colton Wong's playing terrible. It's playing that it's that Jerko's just playing so well. Now, Colton Wong isn't playing that great, but he's not playing because of that. He's playing because Jed Jerko he's been so damn good.
Yeah. Colton Wong has made some defensive plays. He played 2 straight nights in a row, and he made 2 good defensive plays. In those games, he hit a home run, and he also hit a double. I know for sure. He might have gotten some other hits in there too. But that's the thing, is Colton Wong good, and I think the Cardinals are going to stick with him, and I think he is the second baseman of the future. He just has to start focusing on fundamentals. He's got to be able to hit the ball. You can't get on base by hitting the ball if you can't hit it. You need to work on fielding ground balls right at you, because you can't throw out runners if you don't have the ball. So I think the big offseason coming from him. That's going to be a huge position, I believe, going into the offseason, coming into next season, what they're doing with that position. Moving on. So we both kind of said stay within the organization for second base. They have the pieces, obviously. And I think that opinion is going to stay true to this one as well at shortstop.
Miss Diaz, I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is the most straightforward answer that I'll be giving you throughout all these positions is just Miss Diaz, shortstop for years to come.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably have two more for sure answers for you in this lineup, but there's none that I am more sure about than this one right here, that Miss Diaz is going to be your Gold Glove all-star shortstop for a very long time. And there's nothing to add to that. Okay, so now we get into third base. We've kind of talked about it a little bit before, about Johnny Peralta and who's going to play there. What's your opinion on that?
I think if Matt Carpenter's not playing second, he's obviously got to play third or first. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's so many options that it's hard to pin down where you think these players will be. As for next season, I don't think anything will really change that much. After next season, when you have guys like Manny Machado become free agents, I say go make a run at him because he's going to be like 25 years old and he's really good. But as for next season, I think it'll be Matt Carpenter or possibly Johnny Peralta. Although my thought on Peralta, furthermore, is that the Cardinals could use him as a trade piece. You know, he's got 1 year left on his contract. He could easily be a trade piece. But if Peralta stays, I think it's going to be Carpenter or Peralta.
Yeah, like I said, getting into my point, I've loved what Peralta has done. When the Cardinals signed him, people were saying that he wasn't going to be a good shortstop. He was going to be bad and all this, and he played a good shortstop. Supposed to. He even got to some balls that he wasn't supposed to get to. I think that third base, he's suited very well there. He's kind of getting old and fat. And I think third base has suited him very well. The problem is when you get hurt and you're out for most of the season and then you're supposed to come back, your timing's off, you're not hitting the ball right, you're not doing all this kind of stuff. So I think that Johnny Peralta could man third base next year, but I think it's going to be a very open position nonetheless for that. So moving on, the past, almost all of the positions except for starting pitcher and first base, we've kind of said they're going to stay within the organization and kind of do something. So we're moving into the outfield now. What would you think about left field?
I think, I said Brandon Moss, I think, plays first. So I think the Cardinals are going to go elsewhere for their left fielder. And this sort of goes into a whole outfield discussion as a whole. Alex, I saw something on Twitter, or I forget where, but somebody proposed a very, very intriguing trade, I think. What if the Cardinals go make a trade for the Diamondbacks and A.J. Pollock? That could be a great trade.
It'd be a great trade. I agree with you. I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it'll happen, but what if the Diamondbacks want to get young or get some more young pieces? And I don't know, maybe they want a pitcher. I don't know, but I mean, I'm not a GM, thankfully. But I do think the Cardinals will go elsewhere. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know what team they're going to trade for or trade with. AJ Pollock was just a name that was tossed out there. Probably won't happen, but I mean, it's worth a talk. But I don't think it'll be Brandon Moss because I think they're looking for a defensive upgrade out in left field. And Brandon Moss isn't a huge upgrade. He's sort of a stick with the status quo. Holiday's not good defensively. I think we can all acknowledge that. Moss isn't a huge upgrade. Now he is with a bat for sure, but defensively, I think he's average at best out in left field. And I think the Cardinals want a bigger upgrade than that. So I think that they will look elsewhere.
Okay, we're going to differ a little bit on this one because I think Brandon Moss is going to man left field because I've already said I think they're going to try and trade for a big first baseman or call one up or something. So I think that kind of makes it very cut and dry what I want them to do. So we differ on that one. I think that they're going to stay with Brandon Moss in left field. I think that he can get the job done and also perform at the plate very well. Okay, so moving on to center field. Right now, the options are Grichuk and Pham or go elsewhere. What do you think?
If they don't go elsewhere, I think they'll stick with Grichuk. I don't know what that will include if they go elsewhere again. I think it'll be Grichuk. I think he's still young. He's still molding into the player he wants to be. Give him another year or two. And so far this season, at least in the second half of the season, it's worked out pretty well. So I think he will stay in center field.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's got to be Grichuk. 110%. I think it's got to be Grichuk. I don't think that they go anywhere else. This is the second of the third positions that I think I'm 100% sure that they're going to stay with. Grichuk is young, has played a hell of a lot better since in the past couple weeks or so. So I think it's got to be Grichuk. I think.
And then I would assume for right field, you're going to say Stephen Piscotty. I'm going to say Stephen Piscotty. Everybody who has half a brain would say Stephen Piscotty. Just same thing as Diaz at short. He's going to be part of the future for years and years to come, and he's going to be a perfect 3-hitter here and maybe even next season. Stephen Piscotty, hands down.
I totally agree. This is the third player of the third three positions I told you that I would be 100% sure about, and it's Stephen Piscotty coming in. I think he's going to man the job for a long time. I view him as a 2, 3, 4 hitter, can hit in any one of those, or even a 5 hitter, depending on who's all in your lineup. Because I think if Brandon Moss stays, he's your 3 hitter for next year. Edwin Diaz is going to be your 2-hole hitter, and Matt Carpenter is probably going to be your leadoff. So, depending on it where Jerko lies and where Stephen Piscotty are, we've got you're talking your top 5 in your lineup are going to be very good, and where Grichuk goes, because if he keeps hitting like he's hitting, your top 6 in this lineup are going to be very, very good. And and this is a lot of ifs. But we've seen all of this before, because if Johnny Peralta can hit as well as he did last year, 20-some-odd home runs, going to drive in almost 100, hit 300. You're talking you're through 7. You're
not to mention Yadier Molina's second half of the season in 2016 here. He's hit really well, so even potentially your top 8 hitters.
Exactly. You're almost your entire lineup. And if Adam Wainwright can get right, he can hit. Mike Leake can hit. Carlos Martinez can hit. You're talking an entire lineup that's dangerous, but your players have to perform. And I think for sure 3 of the 4 are going 3 of 4 or 4 of 4. Moss, Grichuk, Piscotty, and Diaz, I think, are my 4 that are going to for sure. Matt Carpenter this season's kind of had an odd season. Jerko has never had a season like this before.
We forgot to mention Jed Jerko. Yeah, I mean, gosh.
Yeah, Peralta has hit 20 home runs before. Molina has hit 20 home runs before. So they can do it. It's just a matter if they're going to do it again. And then just the last one, I'm kind of going to answer this one for both of us because I know the answer, and this has taken a pretty long time.
The bullpen, yeah.
But the bullpen, we both obviously agree that they need a piece. And that's just it. They have to have a piece. So that's all I got.
The Cardinals don't just need one piece; they need many pieces. This season has shown that. Coming into the year, it was actually kind of funny. The Cardinals were expected to have one of the best bullpens in the game next to the Yankees and maybe the Giants. But they were expected to be one of the better bullpens. And they were for the first couple months of the season. And then they took a turn for the worse. And by a turn for the worse, I mean a big turn for the worse. So they don't just need one piece. They need 2 or 3 or 4, to be brutally honest with you. Even Sangwon Oh isn't – I mean, the Cardinals are going to re-sign him at the end of the season. But even he's not a complete guarantee. I mean, don't forget that he's in his early to mid 30s. So I mean, who knows if Trevor Rosenthal is going to show up. So yeah, I don't want to keep dragging this on, but the Cardinals need 2 or 3 or 4 pieces at least.
Yeah, I'm gonna just keep it at that. I completely agree. I don't see him going anywhere with that. And just the last thing on that, last thing on this, the Cardinals are obviously going to keep, their, Mike Matheny. They're going to keep John Mabry. They're going to keep the front office. So all those people are going to stay. So
sorry to all the haters. Yeah, sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. That's just the end of that conversation. I also just wanted to say real quick, there in the last couple minutes or so, you probably heard a little. It is true. I am watching my girlfriend's kids today, and the one has currently just woke up from the nap. And if this was a video, you could see her right here in the camera over my right shoulder. And her son is up as well, and he's right over my right shoulder as well. So I wanted to apologize for that. I tried to get this done while they were taking their nap. There she is right there.
Just long.
So I wanted to apologize for that. I mean, that's all I have for this one. We kind of didn't have anything to talk about. Just kind of picking up straws here. Maybe something will happen in a little while. But we will, like Paul said, we will be shooting previews still. We got one for the Brewers coming up. Obviously, we have our weekly podcast for the whole entire league. And we're going to keep up with the Sunday podcast for the Cardinals as well. So thank you guys for tuning in from me and my girlfriend's noisy children in the background. And I mean that with all respect possible. Thank you guys. My name's Alex Schneider with my good friend and co-host as always,
Paul Eppy. Good to see you, Alex.
Thank you guys. It's been an 11-minute stretch. Appreciate it.